Good morning. At least it's morning where I am. It's been a while since I've done this. Been pretty busy working on raising a grandson and having teenagers and dealing with winter in Vermont and all of the other things that this winter has been bringing to us. I found this essay a little randomly as I was thinking about nature and just why I like winter, why I'm a little sad that today is going to be 49 degrees and raining, and the beginning of the end of the snow will happen, and the beginning of the end of the cozy days inside will happen. Fortunately, we get a lot of those here in Vermont because for a long time it will rain and be cold, and so we won't get too much summer. And I try to appreciate that. But really, I love winter, and I wasn't able to do much with this winter this year. I was really limited in funds and time. My new job takes up a lot of my time, especially over the winter. And so I just didn't get out there as much as I guess I would have wanted to without guilt. But here we are. It's March. I'll be planting a garden soon and thinking about, I guess, other essays to write and read and books to write and read and looking forward to cozy days inside again. So anyway, this essay, Against Nature, by Joyce Carol Oates, is one of my favorites that I kind of forgot about. Joyce Carol Oates, if you don't know who she is a New York-based writer. And she's written some amazing things. Blackwater, We Were the Mulvaneys, which I think was a movie. I'm not sure if I saw it, but I think it was. All kinds of great things. So anyway, here's the essay by Joyce Carol Oates, Against Nature. The writer's resistance to nature. It has no sense of humor in its beauty as in its ugliness or its neutrality. There is no laughter. It lacks a moral purpose. It lacks a satiric dimension, registers no irony. Its pleasures lack resonance, being accidental. Its horrors, even when premeditated, are equally perfunctory, red in tooth and claw, etc. It lacks a symbolic subtext, excepting that provided by man. It has no verbal language. It has no interest in ours. It inspires a painfully limited set of responses in nature writers: reverence, awe, piety, mystical oneness. It eludes us, even as it prepares to swallow us up, books and all. I was lying on my back in the dirt gravel of the towpath beside the Delaware and Raritan Canal, Titusville, New Jersey, staring up at the sky and trying, with no success, to overcome a sudden attack of tachycardia that had come upon me out of nowhere. Such attacks are always out of nowhere. That's their charm. And all around me, nature thrummed with life, the air smelling of moisture and sunlight, the canal reflecting, the sky, red-winged blackbirds testing their spring calls, the usual. I'd become the jar in Tennessee, a fictitious center, or parentheses, aware beyond my erratic heartbeat of the numberless heartbeats of the earth, its pulsing, pumping life, sheer life, incalculable. Struck down in the midst of motion, I'd been jogging a minute before. I was out of time, like a fallen, stunned boxer, privileged, in an abstract manner of speaking, to be an involuntary witness to the random, wayward, nameless motion on all sides of me. Paroxysmal tachycardia can be fatal, but rarely. If the heartbeat accelerates to 250 to 270 beats a minute, you're in trouble. But the average attack is about 100 to 150 beats, and mine seemed about average. The trick now was to prevent it from getting worse. Brainy people try brainy strategies, such as thinking calm thoughts, pseudo-mystic thoughts. If I die now, it's a good death, that sort of thing. If I die, this is a good place and good time. The idea is to deceive the frenzied heartbeat that really you don't care. You hadn't any other plans for the afternoon. The important thing with tachycardia is to prevent panic. You must prevent panic. Otherwise, you'll have to be taken by ambulance to the closest emergency room, which is not so very nice way to spend the afternoon, really. Pause. Go back. You'll have to be taken by ambulance to the closest emergency room, which is not so very nice a way to spend the afternoon, really. So I contemplated the blue sky overhead, the earth beneath my head, nature surrounding me on all sides. I couldn't quite see it, but I could hear it, smell it, sense it. There is something there, no mistake about it, completely oblivious to the predicament of the individual, but that's only natural. After all, one hardly expects otherwise. When you discover yourself lying on the ground, limp and unresisting, head in the dirt, and let's face it, helpless, the earth seems to shift forward as a presence, hard, emphatic, not mere surface, but a genuine force. There is no other word for it but presence. To keep in motion is to keep in time, and to be stopped, stilled, is to be abruptly out of time. In another time dimension, perhaps, an alien one, where human language has no resonance, nothing to be said about it expresses it, nothing touches it. It's an absolute against which nothing human can be measured. Moving through space and time by way of your own volition, you inhabit an interior consciousness, a hallucinatory consciousness. It might be said, so long as breath, heartbeat, the body's autonomy hold. When motion is stopped, you are jarred out of it. The interior is invaded by the exterior. The outside wants to come in, and only the self's fragile membrane prevents it. The fly buzzing at Emily's death. Still, the earth is your place, a tidy gravesite measured to your size. Pause. Still, the earth is your place, a tidy gravesite measured to your size, or, from another angle of vision, one vast democratic grave. Let's contemplate the sky. Forget the crazy hammering heartbeat. Don't listen to it. Don't start counting. Remember, there's a clever way of breathing that conserves oxygen as if you're lying below the surface of a body of water, breathing through a very thin straw. But you can breathe through it if you're careful, if you don't panic. One breath, and then another, and then another. Isn't that the story of all lives? Careers, just a matter of breathing. Of course it is. But contemplate the sky. It's there to be contemplated. A mild shock to see it so blank, blue, a thin, airy, ghostly blue, no clouds to disguise its emptiness. You are beginning to feel not only weightless, but near bodiless. Pause. But contemplate the sky. It's there to be contemplated. A mild shock to see it so blank, blue, a thin, airy, ghostly blue, no clouds to disguise its emptiness. You are beginning to feel not only weightless, but near bodiless, lying on the earth like a scrap of paper about to be blown off, 2 dimensions, and you'd imagined you were 3, and there's the sky rolling away forever into infinity, if infinity can be rolled into, And the forlorn truth is that's where you're going to. And the lovely blue isn't even blue, is it? Isn't even there, is it? A mere optical illusion, isn't it? No matter what art has urged you to believe. Early nature memories, which it's best not to suppress. Waiting as a small child in Tonawanda Creek near our house, and afterward trying to tear off in a frenzy of terror and revulsion the sticky, fat black bloodsuckers that had attached themselves to my feet, particularly between my toes. Coming upon a friend's dog in a drainage ditch, dead for several days. Evidently, the poor creature had been shot by a hunter and left to die, bleeding to death, and we're stupefied with grief and horror, but can't resist sliding down to where he's lying on his belly, and we can't resist squatting over him, turning the body over. The raccoon, mad with rabies, frothing at the mouth and tearing at his own belly with his teeth so that his intestines spill out onto the ground, a sight I seem to remember, though in fact I did not see. I've been told I did not see. Consequently, my chronic uneasiness with nature mysticism, nature adoration, nature as moral instruction for mankind, my doubt that one can, with philosophical validity, address nature as a single coherent noun, anything other than a platonic, hence discredited isness. My resistance to nature writing as a genre, except when it is brilliantly fictionalized in the service of a writer's individual vision. Thoreau's books and journal, of course, but also, less known in this country, the miniaturist prose poems of Colette, and Pond taking the side of things, in which case it becomes yet another ingenious form of storytelling. The subject is there only by the grace of the author's language. Nature has no instructions for mankind except that our poor, beleaguered, humanist, democratic way of life, our fantasies of the individual's high worth, our sense that the weak, no less than the strong, have a right to survive, are absurd. When Edmund of King Lear said excitedly, "Nature, be thou my goddess," he knew whereof he spoke. In any case, where is nature? One might skeptically inquire. Who has looked upon her, its face, and survived? But isn't this all exaggeration in the spirit of rhetorical contentiousness? Surely nature is, for you, as for most reasonably intelligent people, a perennial source of comfort, beauty, peace, escape from the delirium of civilized life. Pause, go back. But isn't this all exaggeration in the spirit of rhetorical contentiousness? Surely nature is, for you, as for most reasonably intelligent people, a perennial source of beauty, comfort, peace, escape from the delirium of civilized life, a respite from the ego's ever-frantic strategies of self-promotion, as a way of ensuring, at least in fantasy, some small measure of immortality. Surely nature, as it is understood in the usual slapdash way as human, if not dilettante, experience hiking in a national park, jogging on the beach at dawn, even tending, with the usual comical frustrations, a suburban garden, is wonderfully consoling, a place where, when you go there, it has to take you in, a palimpsest of sorts you choose to read. A palimpsest of sorts you choose to read. I'm sorry, I had to say that one more time. Layer by layer, always with care, always cautiously, in proportion to your psychological strength. Nature, as in Thoreau's upbeat transcendentalist mode, the indescribable innocence and beneficence of nature, such health, such cheer they afford forever, and such sympathy have they ever with our race, that all nature would be affected if any man should ever, for just a cause, grieve. And not in Thoreau's grim mode, nature is hard to be overcome, but she must be overcome. Another way of saying, not nature in itself, but nature as experience. The former nature in itself, is to allude slantwise to Melville, a blankness 10 times blank. The latter is what we commonly, or perhaps always, mean when we speak of nature as a noun, a single entity, something of ours. Most of the time, it's just an activity, a sort of hobby, a weekend, a few days, perhaps a few hours staring out the window at the mind-dazzling autumn foliage of, say, northern Michigan, being rendered speechless temporarily at the sight of Mount Shasta, the Grand Canyon, Ansel Adams West, or nature writ small, contained in the backyard, nature filtered through our optical nerves, our senses, our fiercely romantic expectations, nature that pleases us because it mirrors our souls or gives the comforting illusion of doing so. Nature as the self's flattering mirror, but not ever, no never, nature in itself. Nature is mouths, or maybe a single mouth. Why glamorize it, romanticize it? Well, yes, but we must. We're writers, poets, mystics of a sort, aren't we? Precisely what else are we to do but glamorize and romanticize and generally exaggerate the significance of anything we focus the white heat of our creativity upon? And why not nature? Since it's there, common property, mute, can't talk back, allows us the possibility of transcending the human condition for a while, writing prettily of mountain ranges, white-tailed deer, the purple crocuses outside this very window, the thrumming, dazzling life force we imagine we all support. Why not? Nature is more than a mouth. It's a dazzling variety of mouths, and it pleases the senses in any case, as the physicist's chill universe of numbers certainly does not. Oscar Wilde on our subject. Nature is no great mother who has borne us. She is our creation. It is in our brain that she quickens to life. Things are because we see them. And what we see and how we see it depends on the arts that have influenced us. To look at a thing is very different from seeing a thing. At present, people see fogs, not because they are fogs, but because poets and painters have taught them the mysterious loveliness of such effects. There may have been fogs for centuries in London. I dare say there were. Pause, go back. There may have been fogs for centuries in London. I dare say there were, but no one saw them. They did not exist until art had invented them. Yesterday evening, Mrs. Arundel insisted on my going to the window and looking at the glorious sky, as she called it, and so I had to look at it. And what was it? It was simply a very second-rate Turner, a Turner of a bad period, with all the painter's worst faults exaggerated and overemphasized. That is from The Decay of Lying, 1889. If we were to put it to Oscar Wilde that he exaggerates, his reply might well be, exaggeration? I don't know the meaning of the word. Walden, that most artfully composed of prose fictions, concludes in the rhapsodic chapter Spring with Henry David Thoreau's contemplation of death, decay, and regeneration as it is suggested to him or to his protagonist by the spectacle of vultures feeding off carrion. There is a dead horse close by his cabin, and the stench of its decomposition, in certain winds, is daunting. Yet the assurance it gave me of the strong appetite and inviolable health of nature was my compensation for this. I love to see that nature is so rife with life that myriads can be afforded to be sacrificed and suffered to prey upon one another. That tender organizations can be so serenely squashed out of existence like pulp, tadpoles, which herons gobble up and tortoises and toads run over in the road, and that sometimes it has rained flesh and blood. The impression made on a wise man is that of universal innocence. Come off it, Henry David. You've grieved these many years for your elder brother John, who died a ghastly death of lockjaw. You've never wholly recovered from the experience of watching him die, and you know or must know that you're fated too young to die of consumption. Pause. Go back. And you know or must know that you're fated to die too young of consumption. But this doctrinaire transcendentalist passage ends Walden on just the right note. It's as impersonal, as coolly detached as the oversoul itself. A wise man filters his emotions through his brain or through his prose. Nietzsche said, we all pretend to ourselves that we are more simple-minded than we are. That is how we get a rest from our fellow men. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make of hammered gold and gold enameling to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium of what is past or passing or to come. That is Sailing to Byzantium by William Butler Yeats. Yet even the golden bird is a bodily form taken from a natural thing. No, it's impossible to escape. The writer's resistance to nature, Wallace Stevens, in the presence of extraordinary actuality, consciousness takes the place of imagination. Once, years ago, in 1972 to be precise, when I seemed to have been another person, related to the person I am now, as one is related tangentially, sometimes embarrassingly, to cousins not seen for decades. Once, when we were living in London and I was very sick, I had a mystical vision. That is, I had a mystical vision. The heart sinks. Such pretension, or something resembling one, a fever dream, let's call it. It impressed me enormously and impresses me still, though I've long since lost the capacity to see it with my mind's eye, or even, I suppose, to believe in it. There is a statute of limitations on mystical visions, as on romantic love. I was very sick, and I imagined my life as a thread of breath, or heartbeat, or pulse, or light. Yes, it was light, radiant light. I was burning with fever, and I ascended to that plane of serenity that might be mistaken for, or is in fact, nirvana, where I had a waking dream of uncanny lucidity. My body is a tall column of light and heat. My body is not I, but it. My body is not one, but many. My body, which I inhabit, is inhabited as well by other creatures, unknown to me, imperceptible. The smallest of them were mere sparks of light. My body, which I perceive as substance, is in fact an organization of infinitely complex, overlapping, imbricated structures, radiant light, their manifestation, the body, a tall column. Pause. Just got scared to death by snow falling off my roof. The body, a tall column of light and blood, heat, a temporary agreement among atoms, like a high-rise building with numberless rooms, corridors, corners, elevator shafts, windows. In this fantastical structure, the I is deluded as to its sovereignty, let alone its autonomy in the outside world. The most astonishing secret is that the I doesn't exist, but it behaves as if it does, as if it were one and not many. In any case, without the I, the tall column of light and heat would die, and the microscopic life particles would die with it, will die with it. The I, which doesn't exist, is everything. But Dr. Johnson is right. The inexpressible need not to be expressed. And what resistance, finally? There is none. This morning, an invasion of tiny black ants. One by one, they appear out of nowhere. That's their charm, too, moving single file across the white parson's table, where I am sitting, trying without much success to write a poem. A poem of only 3 or 4 lines is what I want, something short, tight, mean. I want it to hurt like a white-hot wire up the nostrils, small and compact, and turned in upon itself with the density of a hunk of rock from the planet Jupiter. But here come the black ants, harbingers, you might say, of spring. One by one they appear on the dazzling white table, and one by one I will kill them with a forefinger, my deft right forefinger mashing each against the surface of the table and then dropping it into a wastebasket at my side. Idle labor, mesmerizing, effortless, and I'm curious as to how long I can do it. Sit here in the brilliant March sunshine killing ants with my right forefinger, how long I and the ants can keep it up. After a while, I realized that I can do it for a long time, and that I've written my poem. Well, there you go. Joyce Carol Oates, not a Buddhist. Did not expect the ant killing ending. This particular essay tickles me in a number of ways because so often the nature book, the nature essay, and I have more than one on my nightstand to read right now, are, isn't nature laudable? Isn't it a miracle? Isn't it amazing? And it is. And I love it. I like to tromp around in the woods in my snowshoes. I like to get on my dog sled and go through a quiet trail as fast as dogs can pull me. I love being outside. I love to garden. I love to hike. I love to kayak. I love all of those things. But there is this very real sense, and I think she brings it up, that nature could give two shits if I come out there or not. It does not care. We often consider nature this welcoming thing. It's not welcoming you. It doesn't care if you showed up. It's still going to be there tomorrow, whether you put tracks through the trail or not. And I don't know, there's something, just to put it in a very human and people-y way, there's something very comforting in that there is something consistent. Nature does not care, kind of like my mother. It's very consistent. All right. Well, with that, I will end this episode of Backspace. I hope you enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed reading this essay again. It's been a while, clearly, as I totally forgot about the ant killing. But this was fantastic. I hope that maybe you'll check out some of the other essays. Some of them I actually wrote, and while I appreciate that they're not by big name authors, check them out. You might enjoy those too. I am always looking for people to contribute. So if you have an essay that you would like to read, send it my way. Let's talk about it. You can get me at my website, mishkennedy.com. And I will see you next time.